because of the talented efforts of my friend Ishani, I have an Instagram account. I do not live in a cave. I actually know what an Instagram account is. But don't test me. And because of her enormous talent, it's actually become quite an impressive little account. So we are getting, I use the royal we in this sense, it is my face and my thoughts on it, but her art. So we are getting lots of letters and comments from all kinds of people all over the world, none of whom I know or know anything about them. You know on your little tiny screen, their point of view. When we entered into the realm of our Lord Jesus Christ, it got very interesting for a while. It calmed down, and then it went in another direction. But some of the little reels that I've given are about karma, reincarnation, things like that, because that's what we talk about. So we get these heart-rending comments from people, describing sometimes unimaginable difficulties, and just sometimes sincerely asking, sometimes with rage, how dare I suggest that there's something right about their suffering. It's just, there's two different, well, there's more than two, but there's definitely two distinctly discernible tones. And people tell me things like, my son died. I have a debilitating disease that's taking my body and taking my mind. And that's just the beginning. And much of the time, Ishani just handles it because it's way too much. But every time something really strikes her, she'll send it to me and ask me if I have anything to say. Yesterday, I got one that was one of those. It was, I have a disease that's taking my body and my mind, and they were enraged. And at first, I thought there's nothing possibly that I can say. I meditated on it a bit, and time and space and separation is a complete illusion. I have no idea who these people are, even what part of the world they're in. They're talking English, or it's translated, so that's how I see it. But who knows where they are? But we are all part of a greater reality. So oftentimes, I'll think, what could I possibly say? And then somehow I know who I'm talking to. And I don't mean that I know their name or even their gender or their country or anything. But there's something that happens and I know who I'm talking to. At least I pray that I do. But to this woman, of course, I said woman. How do I even know? But that's what I think. First, I expressed sympathy. What else can you express? But then I had to say to her that it would be the height of presumption for me to try to teach you something right now. Either you feel it intuitively, and there's some intuitive part of you that is reaching out for this answer, or there's really nothing else to say. I said it a little better than that, so there was no judgment or no accusation in it, but it was just the simple fact. But then I wanted to say something. I wanted to say, I'm praying for you, but then I thought that might upset them. So I said, I believe in prayer, so I'm praying for you. And I have been, and I ask all of you to, and everybody who hears this, whoever this person is, who is just one of hundreds, thousands, millions. Yesterday, a few days ago, we were traveling just to the village and back, and stopped, as one does, at Pete's, if one doesn't want to use the drive-through at Starbucks. So we went to Pete's and just walking along, and there's a man sitting next to us. And he's holding a piece of cardboard. I am so thirsty, I am so hungry. And he was very small. I mean, just shriveled. And I sort of stepped past, but he was so sad, and his sign was so sad that I stopped and opened my purse and handed him what I found first, which was $20. By the time we came out, he was gone. You hope. Oh my. And then you come to this temple and you want to be uplifted. And Karen and Keshe would just break our hearts, Biraj and Barbara just break our hearts. I've wandered for incarnations. You've never answered me. Are you ever going to answer me? And it's no wonder very few people get on this path, I mean, we have happier songs, Manana, friends, the world. When Keshava, I went up to the village. Did I say this to you? We gave a program about fear, how to live fearlessly, which was, I think, a little big title for a weekend. But when we were driving up and finally had time to put our minds to it, what music are you going to sing? And he was going to go through the long I've wandered, No. And so we did Manana Friends, The Secret of Laughter, Come Chill and Wake Up, just because that is the antidote. That is really the antidote. Now, of course, Swami wrote all these magnificent songs of divine longing because there's a very subtle interplay that's going here. And about our reading today, God does not impose, he invites. And that is the most confusing part of the path. Why doesn't he just impose his love on us? Why doesn't he just impose our happiness on us? Wouldn't that be like a super good idea? It's just like, I saw some other when I was looking at something from the Instagram thing, and there was another person who looked a lot like me, and I was just curious. They basically told us if anything goes wrong, it's because we're not praying enough. I thought, no, I don't think so. I don't want that one. Been there, done that one. Guilt didn't work really well. It's all my fault, didn't work really well. But why doesn't God just impose on us? It's the strangest paradox of creation, of our own temperaments, of human life. And I don't have the answers. I don't have the answers because in order to understand what God does, you have to see it from his perspective. When you try to, this is my, I get wonderful periods of freedom from it, and then it doesn't. Give me one more time. We have it back. Even though we wish that somebody would take care of us and just impose it on us and make everything right, that really isn't the way we're constituted. How many of us really enjoy when somebody as small as your baby or as big as your mother really tries to tell you how you should be? How does that go over? It has never gone over very well in my life. I have a memory of when I was 10, I've shared this with some of you, when I fell in with bad companions, which I did not believe at the time because they were so much more interesting than the good companions. But I really was under somewhat of a negative influence. My parents wanted to separate me from my little pals, which I would have none of. And I remember I was a small child, I was runty, but I had a big voice. And I said, "The die is cast." That's what I declared. I read a lot when I was little. The die is cast. I'm either a good kid or a bad kid, and there's nothing you can do about it. And I stomped out of the room. Can you imagine? My parents must have laughed hysterically and told all their friends. We're always the same, no matter what size we are or what. But the thing about it is, which is so interesting to me, I absolutely knew it was true. And my father was a big man, and I was a small child, and I knew that he could just pick me up and move me somewhere anytime he wanted to. And of course, I didn't have my own income, and I couldn't drive. I had no freedom. But I knew that my life belonged to me. It did not belong to anyone, and my destiny was my own. Now, we're happy with that when it suits us, aren't we? But then when we don't know what we're doing and misery descends and karma hits and we don't remember why, and it all seems so unreasonable to us, then we want to be rescued. But as soon as we're rescued, my friend Shivani, who is a founding member of the Assisi community, and when she was still living at Ananda village, she used to give these long courses, yoga, I think it was yoga teacher training or healing or something. They were like 4 or 5 weeks, maybe just 4 weeks. But she said at first, when everyone would come, they would be so enthusiastic and so positive, and she taught this course long enough, and she was of such an impersonal temperament that she could just watch things and know it wasn't about her. She said, the first week, everybody loves you. They've never met a saint like you. They're so happy to be in your company. This is America, but if it wasn't America, they would wash your feet with yogurt, just like you wouldn't be able to walk on the ground. You would be rose petals, and that's what happens the first week. She said, and this is her words, then after the first week, people get comfortable enough for their natural negativity to rise to the surface again. And week 2, she said, is turn and rend the teacher week. Because they felt so well, they now don't feel so well, and the only thing that's really consistent is that she's still there. So they go after her for everything that she's not doing right. And then by the end of the week, that's all, and then the last 2 weeks are lovely. That's how she described course after course. Because we are who we are. And God knows us much better than we know ourselves. There's so many steps on this path which are about self-honesty, which is the same as humility, which is we're just imposters. We're just pretending to be strong because we're all just longing for love, longing for acceptance, longing to be seen. And so we move around this world learning things, doing things, training our willpower, but we're training our willpower not so that we can be millionaires and successful and have all these things that we can make a big list on our resume, all the things that we do. We're doing the right thing because of what avail is suppression, the Gita asks. We are compelled by our own nature, by our inner longing, by our unlearned lessons to move through this world. We want to fall in love, we want to raise families, we want to make a home for our families, we want to nourish our grandchildren. There's nothing wrong with any of these desires. Swami puts it so simply, they're just things, they're just experiences. They're neither good nor bad. Whether they're good or bad, meaning whether they lead us toward happiness and away from suffering, or away from happiness into suffering, depends entirely how we do them and how we understand ourselves. Am I here to make myself, to hold on to the ephemeral and demand that it be eternal, and then feel betrayed when it isn't eternal? I used to think of it like this. I come into the world from the astral world, and I write because I am karmically a lawyer. I write this contract, and I know how to write contracts. I cover every issue. I will incarnate if this condition is fulfilled, and that one, and this one, and this one, and I make it all like that, and I sign my name with a flourish, and I tuck it into my chakras, and I come, right, like this. And then, wow, paragraph after paragraph is heartlessly disregarded. And at some point, I pull out that contract and I look at it, and there is only one signature, and that is mine. God never agreed. Now, he disagrees for one of two reasons. He hates us. He's stupid, that's actually, so 3 reasons. Or he loves us. So the whole story has to start. The whole story has to start when somewhere along the way we experience a kind of love that is not the same as romantic love, that is not the same as a helpless baby, that is not the same as the adulation of the multitudes. I found a little note from Swami. Swami said, most people are usually wrong. And then kind of as a footnote, he says, remember this if you ever get popular. You know? The love, the adulation of the people, fame, whatever it might be, lots of followers on your Instagram account, you know. If that's what we think of as love, it's not, it happens, these things happen, but it's ephemeral, it's not eternal. And at some point, even if you have great good karma and you get a run of really positive incarnations, which we run into that every once in a while. I had a friend who was a businessman, and he just always made the right decisions. He could intuit the trends, and he was always in the right place at the right time. He seemed to have, quote, effortless success. And Swamiji remarked about him. He said, people look at him and think that, and because Swami could see this, he said, they don't see all the incarnations he worked for it. They don't see all the times he failed and stood up against failure. So now it's effortless for him, but it's because the effort has all been put in. That's what it is. But somewhere in this process, something breaks through. We are really like, I remember cartoons from childhood where there would be somebody in a diving bell. Who knows what the context was? These are images you carry. The cartoon image of the diving bell with the big thing like this and the tube that would come down, and there would be this incredible pressure from the ocean. And all the submarine movies you've ever watched, where invariably the ocean breaks through at some point in the submarine, and then the movie turns into just everybody screaming and getting wet, right? That's what happens after that. In this tremendous effort to stop this force cracking through. And when I began to understand the love of God, which I don't presume to understand, when I began to understand even the concept, I always think of the guy in the diving bell, or I think of the whoever they are, the soldiers in the submarine, that the pressure to break through our resistance to that reality, we have to work so hard to keep it at bay like this because we're so busy being ourselves and we don't understand. We just don't understand. We think we're here to grasp the ephemeral in both hands and somehow by our willpower show that I, a tiny speck of sand on the great beach of infinity, am actually in charge. I am in charge. There was one of our little Ananda girls, one of the girls who lived in Ananda, a child actually. When someone asked her what she wanted to be when she grew up, she said, the emperor of the whole world. Seemed like a worthy ambition to me. When I told a little girl who was all dressed up, just like a princess, she was quite annoyed with me. I couldn't quite figure out why. And finally she said, I am not a princess. Princesses have no power. I am a queen. She was 7, right? I knew her well. This was her temperament from birth. This was who she'd always been. Where do we get the idea that we can be emperor of the whole world? Because we want to be emperor of the whole world. Oh, that's not a very compelling reason, is it? This is what I want. It's what children do. I want, I want, I want. That's why we always talk about Heavenly Father, Divine Mother. It's giving us a clue as to what the relative power is here. The relative capacity to influence is here, and the right attitude that we have. But somewhere in that process, a leak develops in the seamless world of ego, the seamless submarine of ego that we have built for ourselves, in which we live in this world, something breaks through. Alas, sometimes something breaks through that is so difficult and so horrible that we realize, I can't do it anymore. I just can't do it. And there's this strange thing that happens, which is the power that comes into us when we stop trying to have power of our own. And nobody can persuade you of that. Which is why Master said, the only place that God can be experienced is in the human nervous system. The poet in me rebels against that sentence. And of course, Master has made up for it in countless poetic renditions. But I've meditated on it a lot because I don't like the phrase very much, just artistically. The human nervous system, but in a sense it's perfect because it just puts it, where does it put it? It puts it right back on us. That this divine romance cannot begin until we open ourselves to it, until it occurs to us, even just as an experiment, that God really loves us, and that what comes to us is a sign of his love, not a punishment. However, it is karma, and this again, countless how dare you little notes I've gotten when this stuff gets published all around the world in a 90-second comment with no context. But once again, there has to be this realization that if I am this much loved, if everyone is this much loved, that man who was sitting on the sidewalk, I'm thirsty, I'm hungry, I couldn't help but think he was somebody's baby. There was some mother somewhere who carried him in her womb, and maybe she wasn't capable of loving him, but somewhere in that whole process, there was something. And he was small, and he was free, and he was light, but there were unlearned lessons. And this again is, does God love us? Is God stupid? What is happening? There were unlearned lessons. And then humility and self-honesty comes in, where you say, what could God be trying to teach me now? But in some of those little notes that I've gotten where the nature of the noter, I could feel that it was a real question. Don't think about what's happened to you. Think about what it has brought out of you. You can think of it in the negative. Oh, I've discovered I have a tremendous amount of anger in me. I have a tremendous amount of fear. Or else it brings out of us deep compassion, deep kindness. That's where God is trying to take us, because we are sons and daughters of the infinite. And Divine Mother is not going to stop, and our Guru is not going to stop until we become as free, as blissful, and as capable of love, infinite, unconditional, never-ending love. You see, they think a great deal of us. Mother Teresa of Calcutta put it this way: God never gives us more than we can handle. Sometimes I wish God didn't have so much confidence in me, right? But that's the truth, because the divine knows our potential, and we're content to just, clean up the mud puddle a little bit. Just make a little place over here where it's not so bad, and we think compared to what it might be, this is good. We close both our fists over it and try to make the ephemeral eternal. And the divine is standing there with everything we ever longed for. And this is where these heartbreakingly beautiful songs are so magnificent, because they're promising us. And it's a promise offered by the one who has the power to fulfill it. That this feeling we have in our heart that we were made for happiness, we were made for joy, we were not made for suffering. that that intuition is true. And everything else is just a passing storm. Is it easy? Oh, no. Is it simple? Yes. God is simple. Everything else is complex. But he would never ask more of us than he knows we can rise to meet. And he'll stay with us to the end. Master says, I stand beside you invisibly, guarding you with invisible arms. Angels, masters, and saints, we are never alone. And they are always waiting for us simply to say, here I am yours, help me. God bless you.
Love is all I know, sun rays on the snow of a winter long, in darkness without song. Oh, my heart's afire, burning on desire. Only you remain, and a life again. Love is all I know, sun rays on the snow of a winter long, in darkness without song. Oh, my heart's afire, burning on desire. Only you remain, and life again. Too long I did stray, flung lifetimes away, imagined you did not care. I know now your smile was mine all the while. I listened, and love was there. I can't breathe for love, all the stars above call to me, come home. Life's waves all end in foam. Only love can heal all the pain I feel. What a fool